Jonathan is a political commentator as well, but on this matter of the royal family, how do you think this has been dealt with, Jonathan, by the royal family and by those who are reacting to it today?
I think there's always a difficult balance, isn't there, between the member of the royal family as a human being with a right to privacy and, you know, the same rights that we all have to a private life, and kind of an instrument of the state. And that's always the way that the royal family is, particularly when you have the senior royals. You know, this is the future queen. And so I think people do have a right to know. And also I think a lot of it came from genuine concern. It wasn't just prurience. People were concerned, why isn't she being seen, what's wrong with her, why aren't they telling us stuff? And obviously that whole debacle over the photograph just added to the sense that the palace wasn't quite being truthful, that things are being manipulated. And even, even Rachel Johnson, he's quite, a respected journalist, wrote an article in the Evening Standard yesterday saying, before this video came out, so arguing that the woman at the flower shop or the farm shop clearly wasn't Kate. And so this is kind of like cross the species barrier, if you like, from kind of just online conspiracy theory to sort of mainstream.
It's really interesting you mentioned that, actually. I've just been sent a tweet by Carol Decker, the Tapau singer. She's in her 60s, but was very well known in her day. And she has tweeted this morning already, actually. I think this is in the last few minutes. Last week, I posted a tweet querying the validity of the video of Wills and Kate at the Windsor farm shop, says Carol Decker. I genuinely did not think it looked like them. I accept now it was genuine. I did not mean to contribute to the unpleasant furore surrounding Kate's health. I have deleted it. I think, good for Carol Decker for standing up, and she shouldn't have done it in the first place, but good for her for at least apologising for that. There are a lot of people with egg on their faces today, and not just ordinary members of the public who've been speculating on Twitter for a long time, but quite a few public figures as well.
Yeah, I think that people who have talked about this online do need some time to reflect on this, that these are human beings, and particularly when but I also think that, could it have been handled better? Now we know about the circumstances. Did Kate really need to be dragged into that photo controversy? Did she need to sort of issue a statement when she was going through, sort of chemotherapy, that she has to sort of now sort of bear the sort of the force of all that speculation?
Well,
about
let's examine that, Jonathan. Before I come to Conor, let's examine that. Do you think she did that voluntarily? Was she forced to do it? Do you think that was the PR machine, or do you think that was the media, social media? What was the set of circumstances that got us to that point?
I have absolutely no idea what happened with that photograph, and obviously none of us does, but it just seems, in light of what was happening, she seemed to have quite enough on her plate with a cancer diagnosis and telling 3 young children about that without having to become the centre of a media maelstrom for an entire news cycle that dominated like the BBC headlines for a day or two.
I basically agree with you, but I suppose with the video yesterday, at least it will bookend it, and at least we all know everything now, and we can examine the facts rather than talking about speculation, I suppose. Conor, what do you make of this?
I think it's less a matter about a right to privacy and more, if you're in the public eye, what is prudent to do. And I don't think those around the royals did a prudent strategy of managing perceptions of this. I think Kate's video coming out and saying in a very personable way, look, okay, I've got bowel cancer, essentially. I'm now in treatment for it. I've had surgery for it. Now please give my family some privacy. Should have been the way to go from the off. I understand that it might have been a sense of personal embarrassment for her.
Well, we don't know it's bowel cancer. It's sort of preventative treatment. Well, it's preventative chemotherapy.
She says that there is... She used the word cancer, therefore people will go, oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so but we don't know she actually has cancer. So
fair point, yeah. But that was a better way of handling it than the manipulated photo, which was shoddily done. A press release which said that in her amateur photography, Kate has decided to manipulate that photo. We don't know if Kate wrote the statement. We don't know if Kate actually edited the photo. We just have to take the word on it. And then
the tweet that was put out had a C on it which said it was from her herself.
Sure. We don't actually know if it was written or not. We actually have to take the word for that. We now know, this is what's fueled speculation, we now know this is the case because Kate has done the video. Until then, wild speculation was allowed to run forward because...
Well, you say allowed to run forward. Isn't there some sense where we actually say these people have some right to privacy? You're saying the people will always speculate when there's a vacuum, but at the same time, shouldn't we in some way have said, well, stop speculating?
We can call prescriptively, yes, but we all know that people will still speculate. And also, not being funny, in the last how many years, and I'm not justifying it, the last how many years, how many times have the media misled the public on something like COVID or all sorts of other mainstream narratives? Therefore, people are primed to think the most mistrustful interpretation is the right one, to the point of where you've got a video of Kate walking down the street and people are thinking it's a body double, right? That's where people's minds are going to go to. So if they wanted to manage expectations, the new video is the right way to do it.
It's right to have critical faculties, definitely, and to look at what you're told critically, and to look at, you know, if you read something in a newspaper of any description, to be a little bit sceptical and say maybe there's an agenda there. But Jonathan, nonetheless, facts are facts.
But yeah, I think there's also a media element here that, you know, in the last few months, I've sort of thought that not that much has changed since 1936, actually, when famously you had, you know, the world's media talking about the king's relationship with the divorced woman, and the British media didn't touch it, and that's why the abdication came as such a shock to everyone in this country, because no one had known about the story because the media had been sort of deferentially treating it. And I think that there was a kind of a subtext now that people were talking about, the journalists were talking about things as though they sort of knew what was happening, and the general. But that was, I think that a lot of people thought that we're not being told stuff, and that there's still kind of like a media deference. Whether or not that was true, I think the same thing has been.
You think there's
the
a
case.
media deference?
Well,
Not everybody would say that. A lot of people would say actually the media were far too aggressive in saying that, you know, we must know what's going on with.
But actually, when it comes to William and Kate, the media has sort of had a little bit of a hands-off approach. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, by the way, but I'm saying that I think a lot of people, that's what might have fueled some of the online fury, the sense that so the media is not getting into this story, so we're going to do the story instead. We're going to sort of, you know, you saw all these sort of viral tweets, you know, these sort of, you know, these DIY detectives plotting sort of, you know, videos and what might have happened to Kate that we weren't being told about, because sort of, you know, mainstream journalists weren't doing that, you know, for good reason, of course.
Well, it's really interesting, Jonathan. This is kind of, I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily, but there's a wider thing here where in previous years, before the age of social media, essentially, Connor, you know, it was almost as if the news was sort of handed down on tablets of stone by a newsreader sitting behind a desk on the BBC saying, this is what has happened. But as we know from so many inquiries, from so much history, so many looks back at what has happened over the years, there was loads we weren't told, there was loads that we should have known and didn't know, and there was lots of cover-up and conspiracy in a different sense in that way. So really, I suppose, the media sense we have now and the democratisation of all of this is perhaps a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, obviously, the one of the great examples of this is in the 1930s. The New York Times knew about the Holodomor being conducted by the Stalinists and completely covered up for it. So the fact that we've now democratised the public space means that citizen journalists can do some really great work. They can also, if the truth doesn't exist and the truth is per Occam's razor, far simpler than we actually often expect, run away with the most absurd interpretation possible. But I will say this as well, that this might be a perspective for someone born well after the fever pitch of tabloid journalism, well after the death of Diana as well, because I was born in 98, right? There is a general sense of either apathy or mistrust around the royal family as it goes on. We see a rise in republicanism, we see Charles, before he became king, taking a more political role, and lots of people were polarised by that. We see even Will coming out and putting his opinion out there about Israel-Gaza, which is uncharacteristic, I would say, particularly of his late grandmother, the Queen. And so the royals have a bit of reputation to get back with a public who aren't necessarily really royalist, and I think they should have done this video earlier rather than allow speculation to run away with them.
Well, I think that one parallel that did come out to me watching that video was the Queen in Buckingham Palace in 1997, where there was a sense that you know, the royal family is not in control of the story anymore, and that she was kind of the monarch was basically
to talk
forced.
About Diana.
The monarch was almost
died,
forced, you know, sort of Charles I style, obviously with far lower stakes, to kind of just to speak to her people about something that the people were very, very worked up about and very upset about.
Well, they wanted to hear from the Queen at that time.
It's almost like the royal family in a way had to kind of submit to public pressure. You know, obviously there is discussion about whether that was the case. You know, so people saying that, you know, Kate was waiting until the Easter holidays to do this video. Would they have done it if you know, social media hadn't taken off? I wonder, to be honest. But
well,
you know, at the same time, if it'd gone on for a few more months,
I think she was kind of forced into it. Great message here from Ian. I think this is the best text message I've received so far this morning. Hi Peter, it's very simple as well. Hi Peter, today's story is not Kate's cancer. Today's story is how people treated her. That's absolutely spot on. That's what we're discussing this morning. I want to take a few more messages on this, and then in the next section after the break with Connor and Jonathan, I want to talk about other stories that are happening, including a very, very important story in Russia, about 100 people dead there. Sean in Edinburgh says, morning Peter, if Catherine wants to announce her cancer diagnosis, then that is her business. The conspiracy theorists who come up with the nonsense are so cold on what they come up with. Shane in Sydney says, hi, good day Peter, I wish Princess Kate all the best. Kate's health has been the main story down here, and I hope the Aussie media give them a break. Another great show on Saturday. I hope Jack is good, says Shane. Thank you. One person says, at the end of the day, Kate is only human. She's a mum and wife who just happens to be royalty. Leave her alone to cope with her illness. Brian says, I think that it's people wanting the truth. People in the media are all influencers. We're fed up with lies and spin that prevents speculation. We're a modern society, and the likes of Boris Johnson, amongst others, have fueled this demand for pure truth. Again, what is the truth is a very big issue, although we know the very straightforward facts, and we know the truth now in regard to Princess Kate. Cyril has been in touch, says, my wife died aged 63 with ovarian cancer, Cyril, and I'm really sorry to hear that happened. I sense this is what Kate has. Well, we don't know that, and we're told it's a stomach condition due to the timetable of events, major op, etc. My wife fought for 6 years with a hidden strength I never knew she had. I just hope a better outcome here. P.S. The chemo is worse than the illness, says Cyril. Paul has been in touch to say, final one here before the break, says, I recently found out the amount of speculation and conspiracy around Princess of Wales to be disturbing. The entitlement of some people on social media is fairly disgusting at the best of times, let alone currently. I am a cancer survivor of lymphoma, and I'll be in remission for 10 years later this year. Paul, that's great. I'm really glad to hear that. It really hurts me to think that both the King and Princess of Wales have been somewhat forced to lay bare their struggles through ridiculous speculation. It reminds me of how hard it was for me to tell friends and family at the age of 24 what I was facing. Thank you very much for your balanced and sensitive coverage of it all. All the best, says Paul.